Welcome back to So Girly Bags. I'm Mia, and on this channel I share my ideas and we make tons of unique handmade bags, and I show you how to make them step by step. And today we're going to make this really cool DIY t-shirt tote bag with this t-shirt that has cassette tapes on them, and I think it's really cool. I grew up in the 80s where cassette tapes were still a thing. So I'm really excited to show you how this little tote bag comes together. It's super easy, and I think a beginner can definitely make this bag. First, I want to say thank you to anyone who was on the live while I was in the red, white, and blue thrift store picking out some cool t-shirts to make these tote bags. And we found some really cool ones. The Karate Kid shirt is winning right now as far as the next tote bag that I'm going to make. And then also the Vans t-shirt I thought is really cool. So if you can help me come up with ideas to come up with material or some straps or how these other tote bags will be made, that'll be great. So you can leave them in the comments below. But let's get started with this shirt by cutting off the image evenly all the way around the image on the shirt. So first I'm just measuring 1.5 inches all the way around the image, and I'm just going to evenly draw some chalk lines and then just cut along those lines to cut off the image. And then I grab my pins just to hold both layers of the shirt in place. I'm not going to use the back layer of the shirt, but it does help with just working with the shirt, having both layers together. So for now, I'm just going to pin them both together. All right, so now the image is completely cut off, nice and neat. And so now I can just take my pins out and just remove the back layer of the shirt, since I'm not going to be using that. I'm going to use a little bit of fusible fleece on the back side of the shirt. And I'm just going to block fuse it and just lay it on top of the fusible fleece. And just iron over it using either a pressing cloth, or if you have some material, you can use that, some fabric. I just have a piece of cotton fabric that I'm going to use to lay right over the image, just so I don't mess it up in any way. And also to protect my iron so I don't get anything on it. And then after fusing the fusible fleece, I'm going to cut off any excess fusible fleece from around the edges of the shirt. So I thought with this shirt, some corduroy fabric would really make it look nice on the bag. So I'm going to cut a piece of corduroy fabric 5 inches by the length of the shirt and use that to trim the very bottom of the front of the bag. The corduroy fabric is pretty thick, so I'm not going to use any fusible fleece or backing on it. And then I'm going to line the inside of the bag with canvas fabric, and I'm not going to use any backing on it either. So with the shirt and the fusible fleece on it and the corduroy and the canvas, the bag turned out to be pretty thick and durable. So I really didn't need to use much backing other than the piece that I used on the back of the t-shirt. And then I'm going to take the strip of corduroy and place it face down over the shirt with the right sides facing each other. And I'm going to use some pins to just pin it in place with the raw edges meeting up. And then I used about 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and sewed right along the seam. And then after that, I'm just going to open up the seam and give it a good pressing, because I'm going to top stitch right on side each side of the seam after I give it a good press. I top stitch about 1/8 of an inch away from the seam, so I tried to get pretty close to the seam here on both sides. So now that that's done, I grab my corduroy fabric, and now I'm just going to use the top piece to cut out the back layer of the bag. And I use my lint roller to get all the little pieces of corduroy off of the shirt. So it does make a little bit of a mess using corduroy fabric. So you want to use sharp scissors and just really make really sharp cuts, because if not, you'll have frayed material all over the place. And then I grabbed my chalk and I just made a mark 2 inches from the left and right corners inward from the ends, so that way I could give the bag a little bit of shape. So I decided to come in 2 inches from the top and just draw a line all the way from that mark to the very bottom corner. And the top rim of the bag will be a little bit smaller than the bottom portion of the bag, especially since we're going to box the corners of the bottom of the bag. I just wanted the top to be tapered just a little bit. And then I use the front and back panels of the bag now to cut out the lining pieces. So I cut 2 pieces of canvas material for the inside of the bag by just using the front and back layers to make as the pattern piece. And now after cutting out the lining, I'm just going to cut a 2-inch box off the bottom corner of the left and right front and back panels, and also out of the lining. So I left all the layers together, and then I'm just going to take my ruler and measure 2 inches across and 2 inches down and just cut out a box so that way we can box the corners of the bag. And now I'm going to take the front and back panels and place them right sides facing. And then we're going to pin them together, both layers together. And then I'm just going to sew all the way down the left and right side and also the bottom. But I'm not going to sew the corners just yet. I cut off a little bit of the excess seam after sewing down the sides and the bottom. And now we can sew the corners, so I'm just going to take them and just make sure the seams match up and then sew across them using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now the outer bag is complete. I'm going to turn it inside out. And after that, I'm going to take the top rim of the bag and just fold it inward about 2 inches. And you may not need to do this depending on what t-shirt you use to make your tote bag with. But because I did have a lot of room at the top of the bag before I get down to the words on the shirt, I was able to fold it down a good little bit. So now we can set the outer bag aside, and I'm going to start working on the inside lining bag. I'm going to sew it the exact same way that I sewed the outer layers. And also box the corners the exact same way. There's so many ways to box corners on the bottom of any tote bag, but this is a really easy way to do it. So we're just going to do it like this for both layers on the inside and the outer bag. And now I'm just going to fold the rim of the lining bag outward about 2 inches. And then just stick it inside the outer bag. And just make sure that the seams meet up on the sides. And stick a few pins in it all the way around just to make sure everything meet up nice and evenly. I did have some brown cotton webbing, so I'm going to use that for the straps. So I cut 4 straps 14 inches long. You can make your straps as long or short as you want them to, but this was a good length to have a nice shoulder bag. So I cut them 14 inches, and I'm going to stick them in 2 inches from the left and right sides, and I'm going to stick them down in between both layers about 1 inch. And now after all the straps are inserted nice and evenly on both sides of the bag, I'm just gonna take my time and start at one of the side seams and just go extremely slow all the way around the rim of the bag. Once I got to the front of the shirt, the material that the image is made with, it just made it kind of hard to sew over. And with the layers of fusible fleece underneath it and the corduroy, it just got a little thick for this sewing machine. So I did have to switch it to my other brother heavy duty sewing machine towards the end of the bag. It just depends on how many layers you have and what type of fabric you're working with, if you may have to use a more heavy duty sewing machine. But if you are using material that's relatively thin, then you may not need to do that. Or you can also add a Teflon foot. The material that's on the front of the image was just a little sticky, so it kept sticking to my presser foot. So I used the Teflon foot and I switched the machine, and I was able to go across it very evenly and smoothly. I did go back and forth over the strap several times. So that way, if you're carrying something heavy in your bag, you want to make sure your straps are definitely secure inside the bag so they don't come out. I'm using about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance to sew all the way around the rim of the bag. And our t-shirt tote bag is complete. So I hope if you have some t-shirts that you may want to just turn into a nice little tote bag, this video was helpful for you. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up and also subscribe if you haven't done that already. And if you're looking for another great bag tutorial, watch the next video that's on screen and I'll see you in that video. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.